Hello and welcome to another Pie and Smith production. It is the final of the PDC World Championship of Darts. It's Sunday, the 3rd of January. Well, thanks for getting this far. We've got a final between Gary Anderson and Gerwyn Price. It's pretty close on the bookmaking odds as well. So Pieman and myself have got plenty of opinions who may or may not win. I'm on Gerwyn Price, as everyone knows. I've not been confident really at any stage of the competition, including last night. It was another slog, although it didn't go to the last set for a change for Pricey. But it's been a slog for him, but he's in the final, so I can't complain, and I'll be cheering him on. Matt Pieman Hill's got plenty of opinions, so I'll hand you straight over to the main man.
Cheers, Adam. Nice to be here. We've made it to the final, and it's great to roll out the shirt and tie. I feel like I'm going to a funeral or some other joyous occasion. But yeah, I thought we'd make an effort for the final. So jokes aside, the last time I had a shirt and tie on was probably when I took Gloucester City to the Championship playoff final on Football Manager during a tough period of furlough. And that ended in a 3-0 defeat. So let's hope this is a cheerier occasion. So 19 days ago, Steve West and Amit Gilitwala got us underway for what has been a World Championship like no other, really. And we kind of knew that was going to be the case. It's crazy looking back to think that this channel was only watched by a very small selection of ill-informed people. And fast forward to today, we've got a slightly bigger but still very small selection of ill-informed people watching the channel. So appreciate everyone that's sort of watched, commented, given us feedback. It's nice. We seem to have we set out with no real expectations, and we've picked up a steady stream of followers who've kind of given us their opinions and stats and whatnot. So yeah, the likes of Shane, Tommy, Mike, Sam, Ryan, all getting in touch.
Aussie.
Aussie, big fan of Aussie. But seriously, everyone that's watched, massive thanks, and we'll try and keep something rolling for you. What kind of format that's going to be in, whether it's going to be weekly, whether it's going to be just darts, whether it's going to be, how we work with someone else or work on our own. I don't know, but we'll hopefully be able to keep producing something in some form, I think. Let's move on to the final. We've got Gerwyn Price, as you say, and Gary Anderson. Gerwyn Price, second fav coming into this tournament. Gary Anderson, relatively unfancied, I would say, at 33-1. Quite a big price for a two-time world champion, and doesn't it look it now? But yeah, they've both come here. I would say that there's been flashier players in both halves of the draw and more promising looking players in both halves of the draw. But they've managed to do it. Gerwyn Price really been forced to battle all the way through, as you quite rightly say, a little bit unlike Gary Anderson, who has had his moments, but generally has got better and more comfortable as the tournament's gone on and as the standard of opposition has risen, which just is a testament to Gary Anderson's class, I think, really. But looking first at their runs to the final, a bit of a tale of the tape, if you will. Gerwyn Price beat Jamie Lewis 3-2, Brendan Dolan 4-3, Merv King 4-1, Devon Peterson 4-0. I've crossed over there. Merv King 4-1, Daryl Gurney 5-4, and Stephen Bunting last night 6-4. He's not actually faced a player in the world's top 10 to get here, which is quite unusual, but that's not his fault. He's beaten everyone that's in front of him, and he's certainly beaten some on-form players. He dropped 14 sets on his route to the final, which is quite a high amount, to be honest, but won't have done him any harm. He's been in some scathing battles with Lewis, Dolan, Gurney, and Bunting, and come through them all. So he'll be as confident as he's ever been coming into tonight's game, I think, and real signs that his game is coming back to its best there. If we look at Gary Anderson, he's beat Razma, Sujovic, Peterson, Dirk van Dijvenbode and Dave Chisnall last night. Gary's actually only dropped 8 sets compared to Gerwyn's 14, so a lot less darts played for Gary, which is probably something he needs given the age and stage he's at in his career compared to Price. He's only actually lost 4 of the last 19 sets he's played, Gary Anderson, after losing 4 of his first 11. Of course, pushed all the way by Sujovic, dropped the set to Razma in round 1, but then really impressive, whitewashed Devon Peterson, 5-1 against Dirk, and he kind of held Dave Chisnall at arm's length last night, to be honest. So Gary certainly improving as the tournament goes on. I just wanted to maybe pass back to you, Adam, if I can, and sort of get your thoughts on both players' semi-final performances, maybe starting with Gerwyn Price. It was a great game against Stephen Bunting.
Yeah, I was worried about Bunting because he his 140 hitting is relentless, and it creates him chances to win legs and sets. So yeah, I think you put up Bunting to win 4 sets, which he did. So yeah, I think Gerwyn Price went away at the end. I think he went 2 sets up, to be honest. But as we know, Bunting battles back. He don't mind being 2 down, whether that be in sets or legs, which is shown in this tournament. Price in his quarterfinal was great on tops, poor on tens. And then last night he was okay on tops and fantastic on tens. He hit his first 10 attempts at double 10, which is...
I've never seen anything like that, to be honest, on one double. It was sensational. Yeah,
there was a couple of pivotal moments for both. And, Bunting was 2-0 down in a couple of sets and came back to win 3-2. So, Price, this has been the story of his darting life in the last 2 or 3 months, really, since his Grand Prix win. He's been getting in battles and he's been losing legs and sets that he shouldn't really be losing. But he got over the line in the crunch times last night. I think he's going to be well up for this. And I thought that the Mervyn King performance for Price was in getting into the tournament, and then he comes out and goes to a last leg decider with Gurney. So I was proved, I certainly wasn't proved right there. But then last night, is he now feeling? I know it's a daft thing to say because he's in the final, but does he feel that he has got a win under his belt that didn't go to a final set for a change, and he's going to fancy his chances with Gary. He's switched onto it now. He's been speaking about going to number 1, and we know the history these two have got, which we'll come on to. As for Gary Anderson, I think, and I don't want to sound like we're being clever after the result because I'll be honest, yesterday at Gary Anderson and Dave Chisnall, I couldn't call it. I didn't make a prediction. I didn't have a bet, so I definitely couldn't call it. And fair play to both of them and whoever won the game. That was my kind of thoughts on it. But Dave Chisnall, to be fair, it's not really a surprise given what had happened in the last 2 games. Returned to the standard Dave Chisnall, if you like, which is a very good standard. 98 average in over 9 sets is fantastic. But yeah, he was missing his chances. His scoring wasn't quite there as much as Van Gerwen, the Van Gerwen game the night previous. And like I say, his finishing was back to what we're used to seeing from Dave Chisnall, unfortunately for Dave. So yeah, like you say, Gary kept him at arm's length really last night to always have that 2-set buffer, or often had that 2-set buffer. And Dave didn't take his chances in the close sets. And yeah, Gary looked the winner from the halfway stage, to be honest, didn't he? And again, Gary to average 100 over 9 legs, really quite impressive. And it'd been a few games. I think someone said it'd been a few games without averaging 100 at the Worlds, so he's done it twice in a row now. He's had a bit of a roller coaster because he'll have you think that he's not really, like he's got to the final by accident. Gary Anderson, he was talking about 2021 and I'm going to be better next year. I'm going to be practicing with Ryan, so I'll be over my injuries. Well, we've not really seen much visual evidence of his injuries in this tournament. That's not to say he's not hurting underneath. He's come through a couple of different styles of games. He struggled against Mensah for whatever reason. Then whitewashed Devon Peterson. Then he's, pretty much whitewashed Dirk van Dijvenbode in the quarterfinal, and then he's come up and had a little bit of a battle with Chisnall. So he has had a bit of a roller coaster, but he's in the final. And like I say, 33-1 on a 2-time world champion, major winner over and over again. He's only got a 13 ranking because he doesn't turn up in the Euro events and stuff like that. So that made it a bit of a tough draw for him. He was in the same quarter as Michael Smith and people like that, and Glenn Durant, but he didn't have to play those guys. For whatever reason. So yeah, he's made it here, and I think the pair of them have both been getting better as those tournaments gone on. To be honest, and yeah, we're here today, and like I say, there's plenty of history that we'll come on to. But yeah, really close game. Gary Anderson's 11-10. Gerwyn Price is the 8-11 favourite. I have traded out on half of my stake of Gerwyn Price because I've not been confident throughout. I'm actually more confident of Gerwyn Price beating Gary Anderson than I was of Steve Bunting, believe it or not. I actually traded out on Gerwyn Price last night before the Bunting game at 2.6, something like that. Well, he's now about 1.8. I don't need to touch it again. I've got the equivalent of about 20 quid on Gerwyn Price. So if it wins, it will get back it will recover my position of car crash that the rest of the tournament's been for my betting, to be honest. And if he loses, I lose another 20 quid. So that's where I am on it, Pieman.
Yeah, nicely summarised. And I totally agree with the things you're saying about them both improving as they go and both getting better as the tournament's gone on. Timing of the run, always so essential in these longer form tournaments. You don't necessarily need to beat your best from the off. we often see players peak before and then drop off in the later game, i.e. Dave Chisnall. Unfortunately for him, 2 outstanding performances in the last 16 and quarter-final, and he looked a little bit leggy in the semi-final, to be honest. I think the occasion got to him, and it was a perfect draw for Gary Anderson. Spoke about how we would try and make it a friendly affair, and he certainly did. Handshakes and jokes when they came on the stage. They were talking in between sets, having a laugh. Dave, Gary was apologising when he was nicking legs, and Dave was like nodding to smile at him. It was all too friendly for my liking. If you're Dave Chisnall, he had to channel that aggression that he had against MVG and Dimitri, and he didn't manage to do it. But let's credit Gary. It was a ruthless semi-final performance, and one where his experience certainly aided him. So just trying to pick some areas where this game might be won and lost, because of course best of 13 sets. Any kind of finite margins need to be identified, I think. I've taken a little bit of a deeper look at some of the stats. And can I just say, for the seasonal performances, I've used Hockeypedia, Christopher Kemp's Twitter account, a fantastic statistician who works with the PDC. And I just had a little look at the grid that he produced. I would highly recommend anyone who's interested goes to have a look at his Twitter feed. It's his pinned tweet currently. And it really is excellent. It kind of gives everyone a ranking from 1 to 96 in the field of how they've performed on each stat. And I've tried to pick out the best ones where they perform, as you would expect, both these players performing highly, especially Gerwyn Price, who's had a fantastic season. But we can really see with this breakdown just where he's performing so well. And doubling has, as I've mentioned a few times in these videos, been the key to Gerwyn Price's success this year. He ranks 3rd in the field for doubling in this last calendar year, only behind Peter Wright and James Wade. So when he comes into the board with darts at a double, you could pretty much bank that he's going to put it away most of the time. As we've seen when he's been closing out matches, I don't actually have this confirmed, but it feels like every time Gerwyn Price steps to the board to win a match, he hits it first dart at tops, no messing around. So he's a very ruthless finisher now, and that's what's propelled him to his position. Ton plus checkout's another part of his game where he excels, and more on that to come from me. But I really, really do like Gerwyn Price with the ton plus checkouts. He seems to carve himself out so many opportunities, and he really does back himself to get one of the 2 trebles required at anything in the low ton plus region, and that gets him a dart at double, and that's where his good doubling comes into play. So he's a proficient ton plus checkout, and when you win those legs where you're a mile back on your opponent and you nick it, it's a momentum shift as well, and it's a massive part of his game. It's helped him out against Gurney. It's helped him out even against Stephen Bunting last night. He nicked a couple of legs. He had a couple nicked off him as well, but yeah, a key part of the game. And his treble 19 hitting Gerwyn Price. He's only behind Michael van Gerwen in the treble 19 hitting rank. So it shows how confident he is switching down. Naturally, that means he hits less 140s than a lot of players, but he hits a lot of more 134s. So that's something to watch if you're going on lines. Gerwyn Price, not afraid to use the treble 19, but he will generally, if he's got 2 in the treble 20, he likes to bang in a 180, mainly for the raw, for the momentum. It's a bit of a showmanship thing, I think, but will use the treble 19s really well. Gary Anderson, on the other hand, not a leader in any statistics this year, but certainly in the top 10 to 15 players of the field for pretty much all of them, to be honest. The one that stood out to me is his ton and ton 40 hitting, and it just summarises Gary Anderson perfectly. He's so hard to beat. He's pretty much in every leg. For me, Gerwyn Price, we've seen him this year. Sometimes he's been back on 300 and something in a leg when his opponent's been on 60, and then the next leg he'll walk it, and he can go from these extremes, whereas Gary Anderson, very solid, won't really roll over for you in a set. He's not going to lose many sets 3-0, Gary Anderson. In fact, there's been a few sets in this tournament where he's been 2-0 down and gone on to win it 3-2. A bit of a steal, and it really does suck the life out of his opponents. So Gary Anderson, he's a master of set play. That's why he's won this title twice, and his 140 hitting is sure to keep him in all the legs in this game, I feel. Another thing to just point out on Gary Anderson quickly is his cover hitting, but I'm not talking exclusively about treble 19s here, treble 18, treble 17. Gary's a master of the board. He really is. In his early career, he was prone to a miscount or a confusing route. He knows exactly what he's doing now. typified perfectly by a 1-3-1 we saw earlier in the tournament where he hit a treble 17 and went tops and took it out. And it was no hesitation. It really was the perfect indicator of how comfortable this man is with his game. He knows what routes he likes, what routes he doesn't like. Very little hesitation. Not very often you'll see him step back in the middle of a throw. He normally can recover quite quickly. If he does step back, it's for kind of half a second just to reposition himself almost. But he knows what he's doing, Gary, and you won't see him. A lot of the younger players, I feel, if they have a big dart, they might step fully away from the board, take a deep breath, think about it, readdress it, miss. Gary Anderson won't do that. Gary Anderson might take a little lean back, but he'll be straight back in and hit it, and he doesn't mess around, Gary. He keeps it easy. And that wins him a lot of legs that he shouldn't win, to be honest. Just a general tournament observation, because obviously these stats are based over a year. I would say it's worth considering that Gary Anderson is in some of the best form we've seen him in for some time. So he's probably outperforming a lot of those stats. Whereas Gerwyn Price, he's having a couple of struggles in some of those departments. I think his scoring hasn't quite been where it's been all year, although definitely signs that it's improving in that game against Stephen Bunting. I think Gerwyn Price playing as well as he has done, and so is Gary Anderson. And that's why we come into this final in such an intriguing fashion. Now, I think before I go on to my fancies for this game and how I see it going, just want to ask Adam what you think about, obviously these two met in a very big final, 2018 Grand Slam of Darts. It was quite a memorable final for a number of reasons, but mainly the fact that there was a bit of physical confrontation on the stage, words exchange. It was very fiery. Gerwyn Price winning his first major title, verbals after it from both players. And I think this will be their first really big meeting since that game. So do you think that's going to play a factor? And do you have any memories of that occasion and any opinions on it?
Yeah, do I think it's going to play a factor? Gerwyn Price will try to make it a factor, but I think Gary's just going to ignore it, to be honest with you. I made my thoughts well known at the time, and I've done many times since in regards to the Grand Slam incident. I thought Gary Anderson was bullied out of it. I thought he rolled over. He's, Price was the man that latterly got fined or suspension in lieu or whatever it was, and had his wrist slapped. But it doesn't matter because he got the job done and he won. That was his first major. And I think Anderson rolled over there. And then I'm on record saying that I think the X factor and his will to win has diminished since. But I haven't seen any evidence of that really since the Mensor game this time round. But the likes of Devon Peterson, Dirk van Dijvenbode and Dave Chisnall are not going to try and wind him up. Gerwyn Price will try and wind Gary Anderson up. Gerwyn Price's behaviour on stage winds a fair few people up. But it appears that he gets on with them away from the stage. Daryl Gurney is one of those, Mervyn King. Even Van Gerwen to an extent, they wind each other up, but they're quite respectful of each other. Gerwyn Price does rub people up the wrong way, but away from the board gets on with most. I don't think he gets on with Gary Anderson away from the board. This is more deep rooted.
Oh, there's some genuine needle, isn't there? There is,
yeah. This is more deep rooted, if you like. So that's definitely going to be part of Gerwyn Price. He was quiet for much of the game last night against Bunting because he knew he was in the game. But if there's a reaction, if it's to take an early lead or if it's to get back in the game, he will amplify the reaction, if you like, to try and get under Gary. But part of me could sit here and say, Gary rolls over too easy, Mensor wound him up, but like I say, he's not shown any signs since then. I'm not really going to put it down as a factor, to be honest. I think that Price will try, but Anderson will ignore it. Hey, look, if Price can throw Anderson off his game and win 7-0, I'll be delighted. So I'm not denying that. But like you say, it will be interesting to see what Anderson's behaviour is like. Yesterday, you predicted that he was going to be friendly for Chisnall. I'm not saying he's going to be trying that for Price, but that'll be interesting. But on that Grand Slam final, I just said at the time, I think he rolled over, was bullied out of it, and it was poor to see for an Anderson fan really, and that was a turning point in both careers because Anderson's not been near to winning a major since then. This is the first final he's been to since then, I believe. Gerwyn Price has won 2 majors since then and been to 2 or 3 different finals. So it was a turning point of both careers at the time. And now they meet again. So a cracker in store, I think.
Yeah. Kind of gone full circle, hasn't it, really? You know, at the time, they both went on differing trajectories. And then for some weird way, the fate has brought them back to this stage. I personally have spoken a lot about Gary Anderson's mind games and the way, the way he handles the media and the way I just think he's a master of it. You know, people say, oh, Morny, Gary Anderson whinging again and stuff like. I don't see it like that. I think this is a man who's been around the block enough times. He knows when he can say something that will make headlines, and he knows when he can, he says, I just want to play darts. But I think Gary Anderson is very good at sort of deflecting the pressure off himself, lowering the expectations. We've seen it all tournament. Oh, I'm just focused on next year. Don't really care. Oh, would you call this a bonus that you've got this far, Gary? Oh, definite bonus. Yeah, I don't expect to go any further. He just keeps getting better and better. He knows exactly what he's doing. I do believe him when he says he wants to focus on darts, because that's when he plays his best game, Gary Anderson, when it's a free-flowing, good pace, no messing around. He will beat most players when he's playing like that. That's why he wants it to be like that. When it comes slowing down and tricks and roaring and stuff, that's when it goes against him a little bit. But I tend to agree with you, actually. I think a lot of people will expect this to be a factor, but I just think Gary Anderson is too savvy. He knows Gerwyn Price, if he wins the first set, is going to give it a big roar. And he knows at key moments he's going to maybe, take his time getting the dart out the board or mutter under his breath and stuff like that. And Gary, yeah, it might annoy him, but I just expect Gary to handle it better than we've seen in the past. He knows the magnitude of this situation. This is his 5th PDC World Championship final. It's Gerwyn Price's first. So let's be honest. If there's anyone who should be struggling with the occasion, it's maybe Gerwyn Price. But look, Gary Anderson, will he block it out? I think so. I think that he might try a few things himself, Gary. I expect to see him in between sets, walking off, smiling, muttering to himself. You know, that's how he's going to deal with it, I think. So something to watch out for, I think. I think you can see a lot about the players' body language when they walk off for a break. And I really like to sort of look at both players and try and work out where they're at mentally. And I think if Gary Anderson is doing minimal, then that's when he's in a good space. When he's muttering, smiling, shaking his head, that's when you know he's in trouble. And sometimes that can unleash a fire in Gary Anderson, where he comes out and averages 100 and something in the next set. So definitely things to keep an eye on. But yeah, we could go on about this all day. I'm going to try and sort of angle to a conclusion here. And I personally think, I know this is, some people will say this is a bit of a cop-out to say this, but I think this final is going to go really deep. And when I say really deep, I'm saying the full 13 sets here. So over 12 and a half sets is 4-1. And this is how I'm going to make a case for it. 4 of the last 18 finals have gone the full distance, 13 sets. So it's not as unlikely as you may think. You would think that over this kind of format, that's unlikely to happen. But it does happen. And this tournament in particular, we've seen so many games go to the last set, last leg. It just seems to be something about this occasion, with people hanging in games, not being able to get over the line, a combination of nerves, a combination of determination from whoever's chasing, not to give up. And I think, the crowd, don't underestimate the lack of a crowd here. It really does play a factor. These guys play on the floor all the time against each other, and they know that they're capable of getting back into games, and there's no other distractions. They can really knuckle down. The momentum shifts are more frequent in my eyes, and I just think there's a lot more reason to think that this could go the distance. Gary Anderson being in a 7-6 final himself against Phil Taylor, so he's been done that before. Gerwyn Price comes into this as a favourite, but Gerwyn Price is also someone who's had long matches when he's been the favourite all the way through this tournament. He's struggled to put people away until the death. Gary will know that. Gary, if he goes behind, will hang in there. To be honest, if Price does win this final, I see it being 7-6, 7-5. I don't see Gary Anderson rolling over. Whereas I think if one player is likely to win it by a margin, as funny as it sounds, it might be Gary Anderson. It might be Gerwyn Price not handling the occasion, because I think Gary Anderson handles the occasion. We know it. He's tried and tested. Gerwyn Price produces his best. He probably beats him, but he won't. I could look like an idiot here. He's not going to batter him 7-1, 7-2. Gary Anderson's going to stick around and make a game of this. He's a master. So I think the experience increases the chance of a lot of sets. I do have another selection I just want to get in before I hand over to yourself, Adam. But this would be my nap on the game. So get your pens at the ready to avoid this. Gerwyn Price with Betfair and Paddy Power is 23-10 to have 5 ton plus checkouts. Now, I just made a case for that earlier, why I like Gerwyn Price on the ton plus checkouts. And yes, the reason you've got this price is because what they did last night, him and Stephen Bunting, they actually broke the record for ton plus checkouts in a match. So yes, I understand that was an unusual circumstance, but it was unusual in the case that both players were doing it. You know, Stephen Bunting contributed to that. Gerwyn, I think he hit 8 of them himself, but Stephen Bunting still chipped in with a few big outs. But this is a man who literally yesterday played the best game we've seen from him in the entire tournament, and he hit 8 ton plus checkouts, and he also missed starts for a few more. In his previous games, when he has been far from his best, he still hit 3 ton plus checkouts against Jamie Lewis, 3 against Mervyn King, 3 against Daryl Gurney. So even when he seems to be struggling with his game, he still takes these ton plus checkouts. Now, I've made the case that this is going to go deep. This is going to be a long game, so he's got plenty of time to hit these ton plus checkouts. But also, what I said earlier about Gerwyn Price will frequently leave himself on something between a ton and a ton 30, something that requires 1 treble for him to get a double. And he loves these checkouts more than anything else because they're big momentum shifters. They're a stomach punch to your opponent. They really are. So in a game like this, I just feel he's going to get so many opportunities for these ton plus checkouts. And if he's anywhere near the level that he was against Stephen Bunting last night, I think he can cover 5. I think he can get 5 or 6. I would personally have this a little bit closer to even money, to be honest. So getting on for 5-2, I think it's great value. You'll definitely get a run for your money with it. I can't see him getting, he's got 3 against, as I said, 3 against Lewis, 3 against King, 3 against Gurney over short of 4 bats. So I think this goes close, if not wins. So, yeah, I don't know if it'll stay that price. I can't imagine I'm going to move a market. But, yeah, 23-10.
Well, you've been known to move markets before on the darts, Pieman.
Well, yeah, we'll see. How do you see the game going, Adam?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be cheering Gerwyn Price on. I think it's a 7-5 kind of game at 6-1. I think that, Gary Anderson's purple patches coupled with the fact that Gerwyn Price can throw in a stinker set from time to time. Last night there was a lot of 40s and 41s, and followed but directly sometimes by 180s. So Gerwyn Price is going to have to try and get that out of his game. He needs to be throwing straighter and more consistent for me. But yeah, I do see it going deep, and hopefully it can be Gerwyn Price 7-5 to avoid the nerves of a last leg decider. I mean, how much of a talking point would it be if the final itself went to a last leg decider, which is a new rule this year and probably won't be in place last year? I mean, I'm not saying I dislike it. I'm just saying it's different. It would be probably not controversial, but it'll be a talking point. But yeah, I will just say one thing in conclusion, really. I think there's a fatigue factor possibly coming in with Gary Anderson. He is older than Price. He has had injury problems. He still might have a leg problem, although we've not heard or seen much about it. But I thought there was a fatigue issue with Chisnall yesterday on the back of 2 fantastic performances. And there was the signs of it with Gary as well. That there were some legs that were just a bit of a slog, or some sets were a bit of a slog, and there was missing doubles and, taking a while to get down to a score. So, yeah, I think there could possibly be a fatigue factor for Gary Anderson. And I think it sometimes can be a question of who wants it more. And I think there's only one answer to that question in terms of this match individually. Gerwyn Price will want this more than Gary Anderson. He's not been there before, and he's not been to a final before. He's obviously not won one before, and he could go to the number 1 spot, which I personally don't put much emphasis on the world ranking, the number 1 world ranking. I don't really care that much about it, but Gerwyn Price does, and the only way you can get there at the moment, or the next time the rankings are out, is to win today. So, yeah, I'll be cheering on Gerwyn Price. I've been on him from the start. I've not been confident really at any stage. I'm still not particularly confident now, but that's my interest, so I don't need to be looking for bets elsewhere, to be honest. Pieman's flagged up a couple of bets for you. 7-6 Gerwyn Price is 13-2. Like you said, the 5 or more ton plus checkouts. And Pieman was also looking at over what was it, 12.5 sets, Pieman?
Yeah,
so to go the full distance.
4-1 with Sky Bet to go the distance. So yeah, 4-1 there. I mean, it's shorter elsewhere, so make sure you get that 4-1 if you do go for it.
So who are you picking to win, Pieman?
Well, I think it's 8-1 for 7-6 Price, 8-1 for 7-6 Anderson. I mean, look, you can't oppose Gerwyn Price in the last set, can you? The way he's handled them this year. He's already won 3 times. Yeah, we'll go 7-6 Gerwyn Price. But me personally, I would quite like to see Gary Anderson win. I know it's goes again. I would be pleased for yourself if Gerwyn does get over the line. And it's a weird one, Gerwyn. Every time I watch him, I get a bit irritated by him. And as soon as he comes out afterwards in interviews, I think, what a great guy. I really like Gerwyn Price. He's a weird one. I always change my mind on him. But there's something about Gary Anderson. I admire his... he pulls it out of the fire, and I just think he's got all these little quirks and mind games. And I would like to see him dedicate the trophy to Rod Harrington and Wayne Mardle, to be honest. Yeah.
So, right, yeah, so you're on Gary Anderson, right? So it's Pieman versus Smith, a classic in the final. Thanks for tuning in. Fingers crossed for Gerwyn Price. I need it because I've had a disaster betting wise on this, but I have enjoyed doing the videos. And thank you very much for watching. We'll speak soon. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy.